Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dynasty After Dark. I'm your host, Calvin Timms. You can find me over on Twitter at TDC_Calvin, and you can find the Dynasty After Dark Twitter channel, X channel, at FF After Dark. Trying to get used to the new Twitter handle, X handle, whatever it is. But I'm going to be talking to you guys today. Welcome back. We're going to be going through preseason week 1 and some training camp news for all 32 teams. And, you know, I was planning on putting this one out on Tuesday, and I think next week with week 2 of the preseason recap, it'll be coming out on Tuesday. But wanted to put it on Tuesday, but we had the Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott signing, so go and check those videos out if you haven't heard about it just yet. I give my thoughts on both of the signings and try to give a little bit more of an in-depth analysis on both players and what it means for the teams around them. So go check that video out. And while you're over there on YouTube, on Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you're there, if you can, subscribe to the channel. It just helps us out there. And if you can, leave a like, comment, subscription, or like and a comment on the video, thumbs up, whatever. It just helps us with the algorithm and gets us out there to more people. We've grown a lot this offseason, and we appreciate it. And a lot of that is due to people like you talking about the podcast to your friends, or, you know, liking and checking out more of the videos. So we are rolling through the offseason, and we are getting closer and closer to week number 1. And we have preseason week 1 in the books, and I'm going to go through all 32 teams, all 16 games, and just give a quick, I'm going to try and keep it brief. We're going to try and hit 30 seconds per team, 1 minute per preseason game. That's the goal. We'll see how quickly and how concise I can be on this, but you'll be along for the ride with me here. But then we're going to try and keep it brief and just talk about some of these guys, and then we'll try and hit some different players next week or follow up on some of these storylines. But I think there's a lot of development that's happening with the offseason and the preseason right now, and it's going to have big implications on your dynasty rosters, your redraft rosters, and some of the players that we've been excited about all offseason long. They're going to be, there's going to be some risk with them, and there's going to be some potential reward with some of these players as well. So quickly, let's jump into we're going to start with the Houston Texans and the New England Patriots. They won 20-9, I guess, if you care about the preseason scores. On the Houston Texans side, I think the one thing I want to mention is C.J. Stroud. He was the starter, only 4 passing attempts, 2 of 4 for 13 yards and an interception. And people are kind of down, on C.J. Stroud. Oh, he did not handle the rush and the blitz and everything like that. But this was the Patriots. And I know the Patriots kind of keep it a little bit more vanilla and bland in the offseason, but Bill Belichick is not going to pull any punches whatsoever, even against a rookie. And I'm sure that in training camp, they talked about trying to really pressure C.J. Stroud as the rookie quarterback that he is. And Bill Belichick has been known to just absolutely destroy rookie quarterbacks in the league throughout his entire career. His defenses are just some of the most complex in the league. So don't panic about CJ Stroud. They got whooped against the Patriots. I think next week they're going to get him a little bit more playing time, and we'll see in week 2 what he's able to do with a little bit more playing time next week. Now on the Patriots side, Mac Jones did not play. Some of the other starters, Ramondre, didn't play. A lot of the receivers didn't play as well. I think the biggest thing was we saw a lot of rushing attempts in this game, especially for a team that lost, 20-9. They were down most of the game and they still ran the ball heavily. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the impact in season, but the one player I wanted to shout out here was going to be Pierre Strong Jr. And I get it. He played a lot with the twos. He's not the number one guy. They bring in Ezekiel Elliott, but I do still believe that Pierre Strong is going to be a good player for this team. It might not necessarily be in 2023, but in 2024, I could see him being a much bigger part of the offense. And I think that he's just someone that needs a little bit more time to develop, but He had 3 targets in that, or 3 receptions on 3 targets in this game, and he also had 6 carries. So he was getting used a lot with Bailey Zappi out on the field. Kevin Harris also had 8 carries, who's another running back there in the room to keep an eye on, but he had no targets whatsoever, and his 8 carries led to 10 yards, whereas Pierre Strong had 6 carries for 21. So I just want to keep Pierre Strong in your mind, because I do think he's going to be someone that is going to be noticeable as time kind of goes on here. Now, going to jump over to the hot box, the number one talked about player this entire week, it feels like, and that's going to be the San Francisco 49ers versus the Las Vegas Raiders. And Trey Lance started in this game. He did not play with any of the number ones, and he did not look the best. I will admit that. Even as a Trey Lance fan, he did not look the best. 10 of 15 for 112 yards and 1 touchdown. Box score-wise, it does not do justice to what he actually looked like on the field. He had the touchdown, hit the hands of a defender, bounced off them in the end zone into a tight end's hands, and turned into a touchdown. So should have been an interception, but turned into a touchdown instead. Then he had another pass that was dropped by a defender, hit him right in the hands, and should have been another interception, but ultimately didn't count because he didn't bring it in. Now, Trey Lance has gotten a lot of flack this week, and I've put out some tweets or X's or posts or whatever, and just kind of talked about this a little bit, but I do think that it's a little unfair. Trey Lance is a raw player, and this is going to be my 30-second spiel on Trey Lance. He has not gotten a lot of playtime, and he's not getting a lot of playtime with that terrible offensive line. It was an awful offensive line. You're going to see a lot of people out there talking about how he had one of the highest, time to throw the balls, but they're including from snap until when he got sacked. And a lot of those were scrambles and rollouts where he's running away from a defender. That offensive line, if San Francisco if they get an injury on their starting offensive line, they might be screwed. That's the number one takeaway I saw from this game. Trey Lance just did not get a very fair shake. And then it was a little frustrating to see that Sam Darnold only had 8 passing attempts in the second half. And, they really went heavy with the run game in the second half versus Trey Lance. It was, 15 attempts to, I think, 3 rushing attempts when he was out there as a starter. So a little bit frustrating, but all the people that are freaking out on Trey Lance, I think it's a little premature in this kid's career. He's going to be just fine. We got to remember that. He's very, very young, and he's a raw player. So we'll see what happens with Trey Lance. I would not be shocked if they don't trade him away, but, it is what it is at this point. We just got to wait and see if he can get a little bit better as time goes on. Now, on the Raiders side, this is where it gets a little bit more interesting. Josh Jacobs is still holding out for the team and has not had any news whatsoever on signing that franchise tag. He might not sign at all. If any of these running backs were to completely hold out, it would be Josh Jacobs. He's the one that I feel like is the most serious about holding out to get a good contract. Now, I would put that at like a 10% chance, maybe 20% chance. I think ultimately he's going to come back. But from this game, I think the biggest takeaway was Zamir White is actually a decent backup to Josh Jacobs. He's not the same level of talent, but he was looking very good out there with the twos against the San Francisco twos, right? But it's still a good performance. And, the Raiders also don't have a great starting offensive line with their ones, right? But the fact that Zamir White had 13 carries for 43 yards and a touchdown was impressive, and I think that there are good things. If you invested in Zamir White last year, I think you're going to get paid off this upcoming season. He's a very valuable handcuff, in my opinion, and I think he's the number one handcuff for this team in case Josh Jacobs goes down. All right, now going into the Chiefs versus Saints, and the Saints pulled out the win in this game, 26-24, and, again, I don't know if you care about preseason wins or not, but obviously the Saints are here and ready to play, but for the Saints team, I think the biggest takeaway for me personally was the fact that I guess I have two. One, A.T. Perry, I think, is going to be a steal for a lot of people out there. This guy, I think, is going to be very, very good for this team. And the fact that he had 6 catches for 70 yards on 6 targets for a touchdown as well. You know, the Saints have been needing weapons for a long, long time. A.T. Perry was someone that was in a lot of circles talked about. You know, some people liked him as a potential day 2 pick, you know, second, third round pick. He fell to round 5, I believe, 5 or 6. But I just think that this kid has a lot of potential, and on a team that really needs weapons, I think that he is a potential sleeper. The other thing that I want to keep in mind for this roster and from this preseason game is, man, it is crazy to me that Jameis Winston is still not a starter in the NFL. I think that this guy is better than a few starters out there, and the fact that he's still a backup for the New Orleans Saints is absolutely wild to me. The guy he was 11 of 13 for 92 yards and a touchdown. I know it wasn't against the ones, but still, man, I think that Jameis can still play, and it's just crazy that he's fine just rolling as the backup. So just a little bit interesting there. Now, on the flip side, the Kansas City Chiefs, if you're looking at some noticeable takeaways, I think the number one takeaway for me is that, you know, they pulled Sky Moore pretty quickly in this game. You know, Patrick Mahomes was out there. He only had 2 passing attempts, 1 rushing attempt. I think he was out there for 1 drive, if I remember right. And then they pulled him. Sky Moore did not play very much as well. You know, you have guys like, you got Noah Gray out there quite a bit. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is out there with the 2s quite a bit. Rashee Rice, Justin Ross, the 2 players that people are very excited about. They played a lot longer. Sky Moore is the number one guy that should be looked at. Him, and I do believe the fact that Isaiah Pacheco didn't play at all with this team, with the starter, you know, or with the 2s. It's very good signs for those 2 players specifically in terms of if you're banking on them. I think that it's going to be good for you this upcoming season. You're getting them kind of cheap, in my opinion, and I think that the return on those 2 players is going to be massive. So that's my takeaway from the Kansas City Chiefs side, and you know, we'll see how as the starters start to play a little bit more, if they do in these next couple of preseason games. I wouldn't be shocked if by preseason week 3 you see a lot more starters out there, but yeah, there's going to be teams like this next team we're going to talk about who don't start anybody the entire preseason, and that's going to be the Los Angeles Rams, right? So the Rams and the Chargers played each other. Makes sense, you know, same field, same stadium, no travel time. It's super easy for a preseason game. Number one takeaway for the Rams, though, is I think Stetson Bennett is that dude. And I know my co-host, Dale, does not believe in Stetson Bennett. Never liked Stetson Bennett, but, you know, I never said that Stetson Bennett is going to be a stud for the NFL. But I do think that he's going to be a quality backup player. And he showed that in this game because he had 17 of 29. He played most of the game, and I think he's going to play a lot of the preseason, to be honest with you. He's going to ultimately secure himself as the backup to Matt Stafford. And 17 of 29 for 191 yards and a touchdown. Now, again, it's not against a bunch of starters for the Chargers side, but, you know, I do think that Stetson Bennett is going to be the number 2 guy, and he's worth a shot in your Dynasty leagues. There's not going to be much, again, to take away from the Rams this entire preseason, but, you know, we got to take what we can get from the playtime that some of these guys are getting. Now, on the flip side, the Chargers, the biggest takeaway for me from this game was, and the preseason kind of talk and rumors, is Quentin Johnston. He had 2 kind of bad drops in this game. Now, they're being over exaggerated, in my opinion. Like, they were not easy layup catches where he's running wide open and, you know, nobody's even near him and he just concentration drops it, right? The one drop that everyone's talking about is it hit him in the hands, but he had a guy kind of hanging on him the entire time. And I think the other one was near the sideline and he, you know, threaded it in a needle, right? But it was another kind of contested catch there. Now, everyone's going to say, oh, well, why was it contested? Yeah, because none of the best players out there ever catch contested. You're right. Justin Jefferson never has a contested catch. It's a stupid argument. The quarterback throws the ball where he throws the ball. So, the players got to go and get it no matter what. So I do think it is a dumb argument. We saw this and I do think it's a little silly that a lot of people are talking about, oh, well, Jamar Chase dropped a lot of balls in preseason. Quentin Johnston is not Jamar Chase. I like Quentin Johnston a lot, but he is not Jamar Chase. So just keep that in mind. But on the flip side, with Quentin Johnston, 3 catches for 10 yards on 6 targets, so 50% catch rate. Again, not great. Two drops in there, but touchdown as well. They used him in the short yardage red zone work, and that's where I think he is going to be a monster this upcoming season. And yeah, it's going to be fun to watch Quentin Johnston. So, maybe this will give you a buy window on QJ, but I think that it's well worth it if you can go and get him a little bit cheaper. All right, we're going to keep it going here with the Eagles versus the Ravens, and one of the most miraculous things here is the Ravens were actually able to continue their crazy win streak for preseason games. 20-19, barely scraped by, but man alive, that streak is nuts. I don't think they've lost a preseason game since the Joe Flacco era, is what I heard, and that is just absolutely wild. But for the Ravens, I think the number one takeaway for this, and with training camp, kind of incorporating both pieces into this, Zay Flowers might actually be that dude for this team. And I'm a guy that really likes Rashad Bateman, but it's looking more and more likely that Zay Flowers might just be the number one option for this team, and he's quickly kind of establishing himself as that. OBJ's been pretty good in practice so far, but for being a rookie wide receiver, Zay Flowers played 10 snaps in the entire game, and it was very early on. They got him out of there really, really quickly, and that is absolutely wild to me because as a rookie, only getting 10 snaps means that they trust him a lot for this team. You couple that with the amazing practice reports that Zay Flowers is having, and he might legitimately be the steal of this upcoming draft. So Zay Flowers is looking like a very good potential steal for this team, but it's just a name to keep out there and keep on your mind. So as we're moving through. On the flip side, the Philadelphia Eagles, they had quite a few players. They didn't start many starters in this game, and I think the number one takeaway is Rashad Penny played a lot in this game, and you're going to see a lot of talk about him this week probably, and you probably have heard. And again, I want to get this one out there a little bit earlier next week, and we're going to be rolling into more training camp games tonight by the time you're listening to this, but Rashad Penny was playing into the fourth quarter. We're going to see if that continues. There's a real chance that he doesn't make this team, and I get it, it's a fun name, former first-round pick, but Rashad Penny has not been able to stay healthy, and he's been good usually when he plays, but they did not commit anything to him in the offseason. Only $1.1 million or so for a one-year contract, and Rashad Penny playing into the fourth quarter of a preseason game is not a good sign for him. So, I am glad I was actually able to sell Rashad Penny earlier this offseason for a second in a few leagues. If you can get out of Rashad Penny for a third at this point in time, I would 100% be taking that, because at this point, Rashad Penny, we know what he is. He's not proven that he can stay healthy at all. So I'm 100% out, but, just buyer beware with the Rashad Penny at this point in time. Rolling on to the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Dallas Cowboys joint practice this last week. We're going to talk about 2 running backs here, and this is why it's kind of interesting. On the Jaguar side, I have probably the biggest video I've done for this channel was the Tank Bigsby versus Travis Etienne video that I put out. And, I was talking about in that video how I thought that ultimately Travis Etienne would finish as the number 1 running back for this team. And since that video, I have everything has been a positive drumbeat for Tank Bigsby, more than I anticipated him to have ever since then. But Tank Bigsby in this game, 9 carries for 52 yards. He busted off a 34-yard run. He looked a lot better than Travis Etienne, averaging 5.8. 34-yard run will help with that. But Travis Etienne busted off a 13-yard run, but he had 5 carries for 22 yards, which means he had 4 carries for, quick math here, 9 yards, which is not great. So if I'm a Travis Etienne owner, I am very worried at this point in time because I do think that Tank Bigsby is going to be utilized primarily as the pass-catching back. He's much better than Travis Etienne in that regard. And if he continues to look like he's carrying the ball, this group of owners or this group of coaches did not draft Travis Etienne. They have no ties to giving him a ton of usage on this team. He's going to have Trevor Lawrence pulling for him, and he was good last year. Not great, but good. I do think that I'd be a little bit worried if I'm Travis Etienne, but yeah, for me, it just means that Tank Bigsby is going to be a massive steal in your rookie drafts. He's someone that's still going in the mid to late second in a lot of rookie drafts, so just seems like someone that seems like he's going to pay off very quickly for Dynasty. Now, on the other side, the other running back I wanted to talk about was going to be Deuce Vaughn. Now, Deuce Vaughn is an interesting player. He had 8 carries for 50 yards and a touchdown, and this guy's tape, man, is so ridiculous. But he also had 3 targets and 3 catches was for 6 yards. Not great there, but dude, he's so small. He's 5'6", 178 pounds. So he's a thick little meatball running around out there, but he looks so tiny, even in the pads. Like, he almost looks like a cheat code in Madden where someone shrunk a player down. That's what Deuce Vaughn is, and it terrifies me for fantasy football because I have said all offseason long, he's a very, very, very good player. I predicted him going to the Cowboys back in March because his dad was the scout for the Dallas Cowboys, and it's an amazing story and all that, but I said back in March, I'm not betting on Deuce Vaughn for fantasy because he would be the outlier of outliers, and I don't want to bet on that. He might prove me wrong and make me look like a fool because dude has been tearing up camp, and I think legitimately he's so small that it makes it hard for him to get seen by the defense, and he's legitimately slipping through holes on that the offensive line is making, and he's just popping up and he disappears. Like, he disappears and Houdini's his way for like 5-10 yards all the time. So Deuce Vaughn is someone to keep an eye on. Let's see how he kind of continues to do this week in the preseason and going forward. And he's someone that, again, I could definitely be eating my words very, very quickly on this player going forward. Now, going over to the Jets versus Carolina Panthers, and the guy that I want to talk about in this one very clearly for the Jets is going to be Zach Wilson. Now, if you're not watching HBO Hard Knocks, the Jets are the team for Hard Knocks this year. You're getting an inside look on a lot of Aaron Rodgers. But with that, you're also getting to see a little bit more Zach Wilson and everything like that. And I had a pretty popular post last night on X, Twitter, whatever, about Zach Wilson. And people just seem to love, just like with Trey Lance, people love to hate on some of these guys. You see it with Fields, you see it with Lance, you see it with Zach Wilson. You don't really see it a ton with Mac Jones or Trevor Lawrence as much because they've kind of proven it a little bit on the field. Zach Wilson gets a lot of hate by a lot of people, and I think it's a little bit unfair. This kid was drafted extremely young. He was 21, I believe, 21 when he got drafted, and he was expected to save this franchise. The Jets have been bad pretty much my entire life, my entire football fandom, they've been bad, right? They drafted this kid and put the entire world on his shoulders, and, people just gave up on him instantly because he wasn't able to live up to what the expectations were. And I honestly believe that Aaron Rodgers is going to save this kid's career. He was phenomenal in this game. 14 for 20 for 123 yards and a touchdown. And he was very good. He moved the ball well. And he looked pretty sick in those green New York Jets, those very, very green Jets rosters. So something to keep in mind. But yeah, I thought it was pretty good by Zach Wilson. And I do believe that he's going to have a lot of potential moving forward. Now, on the other side, for the Carolina Panthers, I think the number one takeaway for me for this team is I am very scared for their offensive line, and especially for Bryce Young's health. It is not looking good that they were able to pressure him as much as they did. I know that they only had one sack officially for 9 yards, but man, they were getting to Bryce Young a lot. I am shocked that they only credited them with one sack, because dude, they were just getting to him almost nonstop, and it scares me a little bit. Again, when you have a outlier of a small quarterback, and this is my entire fear with Bryce Young. He is someone that scares me when he's going to be taking hits from these monsters like Quentin Williams, right? And if you're going to be pressuring this guy this much, it's very, very scary. So the Carolina Panthers need to get this line in order and quickly, and hopefully they can do that, because Bryce Young looked very good when he had time to throw. He was 4-6 for 21 yards. Not amazing there, but they didn't have all their starters out there and everything like that. But I do think that Bryce Young can be very good. Like I've always said, he can be very good. Not for fantasy necessarily, but I think that he can be very good for the NFL. But man, this Carolina Panthers offensive line needs to get to work, and they need to get to work quick. All right, now we're at 26 minutes and we're about halfway through, so I'm going to keep going. This will be the last one. So after this one, we'll be halfway through, and I will get the other half, and we'll drop this here on Friday. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get to all of them. Again, I think that this will be the format going forward. Is we're going to do 2 recaps. All the teams, trying to keep it pretty quick. I'm going a little bit over 30 seconds per team, unfortunately. I'm trying, man. I'm trying. There's a lot of teams out here. And it's hard to talk that fast, too. It's crazy. But, we'll cover the Chicago Bears, Tennessee Titans, and maybe I'll get to the other half on Friday. If not, next week I'll be getting them out Monday and Tuesday, and we'll kind of recap them a little bit earlier in the week. But Tennessee Titans versus Chicago Bears, and the number one takeaway for me for the Bears, Justin Fields is about to ball out, boys. It's going to be crazy. He's going to go absolutely nuclear for fantasy football, and it's hilarious. Again, I talked about this with Zach Wilson a little bit, and Trey Lance, and this whole quarterback class, right? These guys just get so much hate. There's nothing that they can do. And it's like, what do you want him to do? He had 3 of 3 for 129 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had -9 air yards, and this is what every Justin Fields hater is talking about right now. Well, they were all screens, and they all took him to the house. Okay. Last year, he couldn't do that. They didn't have the weapons for that. So, last year he wasn't able to do that. He could not pass the ball like that. And, now it's bad because he can do that. It's like, what do we want from this player? Come on, guys. We have to be consistent here. That's all I'm asking for, is just a little bit of consistency. So, the fact that he had -9 air yards, you just can't win when you're talking about Justin Fields. So, I think it's a little silly and a little dumb, but my biggest takeaway is Justin Fields, it seems like they have weapons, like legitimate weapons for this team now. They've kind of figured something out schematically as well. We'll see if it kind of carries into the actual NFL season. But the Bears, man, they could be very disgusting. Justin Fields with his rushing ability, and if he can pick it up like we saw at Ohio State with his arm, oh my gosh, this team is going to go nuts. They are going to go absolutely nuts. So, Justin Fields, man, he's the guy. He is that dude. Now, on the other side, I think that it's a little interesting to talk about some of these players. I guess I can talk about it. The news did drop today. Treylon Burks got injured in camp. He tweaked his knee, LCL strain. Luckily, he avoided an MCL or ACL or anything like that. Hopefully, it doesn't get any worse, but he's going to be shut down for the next couple of weeks. And I do think that without him, they didn't play DeAndre Hopkins. They didn't really play any of the starters. Malik Willis and Will Levis had a competitive battle for the backup role. Malik Willis is probably going to be the backup to start the season, but I do think that Will Levis is eventually going to get there. I think they're going to run with 3 quarterbacks for most of the year, so I don't think they're going to deactivate either one of these guys or send either one to the practice squad or anything like that. So we're going to be able to see how this develops, but the backup quarterback job is going to be interesting. A lot of people just gave it over to Will Levis, but Malik Willis showed he's a little bit more than what people kind of thought, with the rushing ability that he has, and he was a little bit better through the air, 189 yards on 16 attempts, an average of 7.6 versus the 6.1 average of Will Levis, but, I'm a little nervous about this team without Treylon Burks, and the weapons that are behind these guys, I think kind of stink, so that scares me quite a bit from a fantasy perspective, but, it is what it is at this point in time. So, yeah, the Tennessee Titans are an interesting team to watch. I think that the AFC South is wide open for people to go and grab, but, we need to see something. So, yeah, that is the last of the games that I'm going to cover here today. There's going to be more, and again, we're going to jump into preseason week 2. We'll recap all those as well. We'll get them out earlier next week. I appreciate you guys checking this video out. I'm not going to take too much more of your time, but again, if you can, just follow me on Twitter at TDC_Calvin. If you can hit us up on Twitter, X, whatever, at FF After Dark or TDC_Calvin, and the Dynasty After Dark YouTube channel, Facebook, all that stuff. So all the social medias, we're out there. We're out there for everybody. And hopefully next week for the preseason, we can maybe get Dale back on. Try and keep it pretty quick again. But yeah, there's a lot of news out there, and we're trying to keep you guys up to date on all of it because, again, there's going to be some amazing values for some of these players, and I want you guys to be able to get in or out early. And, I'm giving my assessment on it, but, I've been wrong in the past. So, I'm not saying that I'm going to be 100% right, but I will say that I have a better track record than most in terms of, identifying the problems. And this probably comes from me being an engineer, right? But, identifying the problems early and moving on quickly. So that said, let me know your thoughts again on YouTube, on Twitter. And until next time, thank you guys so much for joining me. Have a good night.